The village lay under a red-tinged sky that seemed to hum with an uneasy calm, the streets empty except for the occasional stray animals scurrying between homes. The air smelled of dust and smoke from the distant chimneys, and children played, unaware of the shadow creeping above them. The first sign came as a distant roar that grew louder by the second, a sound like thunder mixed with metal, as massive ships pierced the horizon, their hulls glinting in the dying sunlight and casting long, menacing shadows over the fields. The villagers stopped in their tracks, staring upward, their hearts pounding in unison, and then, without warning, the ships descended, breaking the quiet serenity like a storm. Unleashed soldiers clad in black armor poured from the ramps, their weapons raised and eyes scanning the streets with ruthless efficiency. The children in the village froze, unable to comprehend the danger until the first screams pierced the air. A group of them were grabbed without warning, the small hands clawing at air and the pavement as the soldiers dragged them away. One child tripped and fell, scraping knees and palms, but a heavy boot pressed down, forcing him up and forward. The parents cried out, but the soldiers ignored them, advancing. With mechanical precision, the village elder tried to intervene, waving arms and shouting, but he was pushed aside by a soldier whose helmet reflected the fire of a nearby torch. The sounds of struggle and terror filled the narrow alleys as families scattered, some hiding behind carts, others diving into doorways, but it was futile. The soldiers moved like shadows, cutting off escape routes with perfect coordination. The three children who would later be remembered as the lost ones were snatched from the center of the square, their eyes wide with fear and tears streaking their faces as the metal doors of the first ship hissed open. To receive them, the ramp descended like a dark tongue, swallowing them whole. The villagers could only watch, helplessly, their shouts for mercy lost against the roar of engines and the metallic clang of weapons. The youngest cried out for his mother, voice trembling and echoing across the empty streets, but no mother came running, only silence and despair. The soldiers turned and motioned for the rest of the villagers to disperse, and a single shot from a blaster scorched a tree trunk as a warning. The wind carried the acrid smell of ozone and burning metal, and the sky seemed darker as more ships arrived in formation, creating a wall above the village. And in the chaos, a lone figure on the distant hill watched the scene unfold. Her eyes narrowing, she could feel the movement of her children, and the cold metal grasp of the soldiers. Through some instinct deeper than logic, her heart raced and her breath caught as adrenaline surged. She clenched her fists and stepped down the hill, her boots crunching over gravel and broken stone, her mind already mapping the path she would take to reach them, her soul ignited with fury and determination. She would not allow them to be taken without a fight. Not one breath, not one tear would go unanswered. And even as the ships lifted into the sky with her children trapped inside, she swore a silent promise to herself that no force in the galaxy could stand against her resolve. The cold metal walls of the ship reverberated with the hum of engines as the three children huddled together, their small bodies pressed against each other for comfort. But the sterile walls offered no solace. The air was thick and smelled faintly of oil and burned circuits. Every movement of the ship made the floor vibrate like a living creature, and the children could hear the boots of soldiers marching in calculated rhythm, echoing down narrow corridors. Their fear was a tangible thing, a living presence that made the hair on their necks stand on end. The eldest tried to whisper words of courage to the youngest, but his voice trembled and broke, leaving only tears and stifled sobs. The middle child clutched a small stuffed animal, a remnant of home now crushed in tiny fists. The soldiers walked past them without a glance, a blur of black armor and reflective visors. The children knew there was no hope in pleading. The harsh lights flickered and hummed, creating shadows that twisted and danced along the walls, making every corner a potential threat. The youngest whimpered, reaching out for someone who could protect him. Anyone but the empty walls offered no answer. As the ship rumbled, the children were moved into a holding compartment, stark and bare. Except for a narrow bench, the walls seemed to close in on them, suffocating their spirits, and the door hissed shut with finality, sealing them away from the world they knew. Their cries echoed back at them like ghosts, mocking their helplessness. The eldest tried to think of an escape, a crack in the metal, or a distraction that could buy them precious moments, but every idea seemed impossibly distant, and the soldiers returned periodically, their presence a constant reminder of captivity, their steps a drumbeat of oppression. And as the hours passed, the children began to notice small details. the subtle vibrations of the engines, the soft click of a latch in a distant corridor, the way the light shifted along the floor, each sound a thread in a tapestry of survival. The middle child whispered of home, of gardens and trees and laughter, as if the memory could shield them from reality. But reality was unrelenting and pressed closer with each passing minute. They clung to each other, their fears slowly transforming into a quiet determination fueled by instinct and the bond only siblings could share. Outside the compartment, a soldier paused, listening to distant chatter over a communication device, unaware of the silent planning of the children inside the room. The eldest shifted slightly, testing the strength of the door as the youngest clung to his sleeve, and the middle child held the stuffed animal tight like a talisman against the darkness. The ship hummed and rumbled, carrying them further from the village and deeper into the unknown. And yet, in the midst of fear, a spark of hope ignited in their hearts, a feeling that someone somewhere was watching, someone who would not let them remain in the Empire's grasp, someone whose fury would be more terrifying than any soldier. And as the ship continued its journey through the void, the children held on to that spark, imagining the moment they would be rescued and vowing silently that no matter what they would survive and face whatever awaited them together. Far across the galaxy, a lone figure moved with purpose through asteroid fields and silent voids, her ship slicing through the darkness like a blade, her eyes never leaving the console as data scrolled across the screens, mapping the path of the stolen children. Every blink of sensors and every pulse of communications fed into her mind, building a perfect map of their journey. She felt the vibration of their fear across light years, a pulse in her chest that guided her faster than any navigation system. Her instincts, sharpened by years of hunting and surviving in worlds most feared to enter, made her senses almost supernatural. She scanned the regions of space where the Empire often patrolled, noting patrol routes and weak points, every calculation precise, every movement deliberate. She remembered the village, the way the children had cried out, the terror in their eyes, and that memory burned in her chest, pushing her faster than engines or fuel could demand. She accessed hidden caches of weapons and gadgets stored across the galaxy, tools she had never shown to anyone and would never trust to anyone else. Her mind raced with contingency after contingency, planning every possible obstacle the Empire could throw in her path, and yet she never faltered. Her ship glided through debris and abandoned stations, moving like a shadow. She intercepted signals from Imperial communications, decoding encrypted messages without hesitation and predicting the next moves of her enemies with almost impossible accuracy. Every soldier in the Empire became a number in her calculations, a variable in her hunt. Nothing escaped her attention. The slightest blip on a radar, the faintest vibration in a corridor, all were clues leading her closer to her children. She recalled every lesson she had taught them, from how to run through forests to how to hide in plain sight. And she vowed silently that she would not fail them now. Every instinct screamed at her that time was against them, yet her resolve was iron strong. She accelerated through warplanes, slipping past patrols and automated defenses, each maneuver executed with the precision of a predator stalking prey. She allowed herself a brief glance at the stars, distant and cold, yet somehow comforting, reminders that even in the infinite expanse she would find them. She accessed intelligence reports from rebel spies and smugglers, gathering pieces of information, each more crucial than the last. The sense of anticipation was electric, a constant thrum in her chest. She visualized the children huddled together on the cold metal floor of the Empire ship, and her fists clenched with fury. She could feel the engines under her hands, the vibration of determination coursing through her veins. She knew the Empire would underestimate her, as they always did, and that arrogance would be their downfall. With a deep breath, she set her course for the last known location of the children, her mind a storm of plans and traps, and as she leaped into hyperspace her thoughts were only on them, on bringing them back, on teaching the Empire a lesson that would echo across systems, and on the fire that would consume her enemies for daring to touch her family. She would not rest, she would not hesitate, and no force in the galaxy could stop the deadliest Huntress from reaching what was hers. She arrived at the remote asteroid station, hidden in the shadows of a gas giant, her ship docking silently among jagged rocks and dormant vessels. The airlock hissed open, and she stepped onto the metal catwalk, her boots echoing softly but firmly across the steel floor, every movement precise, every step calculated, as if the station itself was part of her plan. She moved Through corridors lined with abandoned machinery and flickering lights, her eyes scanning every surface, every shadow. For traps or surveillance devices, she accessed hidden compartments in the walls, retrieving weapons and tools she had collected over years. Weapons from distant worlds, each one chosen for a specific purpose, each one deadly in the right hands. She assembled gadgets with care, small devices that could disable locks, scramble signals, or create distractions, leaving chaos behind for the Empire to stumble through. She studied maps and schematics of Imperial patrols, every corridor, every security camera, every routine documented in her mind with photographic clarity. She plotted the exact route she would take through the fortress. She memorized guards, shifts and timing of automated systems, and prepared contingencies for the unexpected. She ran simulations in her mind, imagining every possible response the soldiers could make and how she would counter each one. She prepared traps of her own, a simple wire here, a pressure sensor there, small details that could turn a hallway into a maze of danger for the unwary. She packed compact but powerful weapons, each selected for maximum effect and minimum noise, every strap on her body placed to allow freedom of movement and quick access. She practiced movements in the shadows, flipping and twisting silently over crates and beams, imagining herself inside the enemy stronghold. Her mind alive with tactical possibilities, she reviewed the personalities of key Imperial officers, her knowledge gathered from whispers and intercepted communications telling her which ones would hesitate and which ones would charge blindly into a trap. She considered using deception disguises and psychological manipulation to sow confusion and fear among them, each plan layered over the last, creating a web of strategy that only she could untangle. She rehearsed escape routes and fallback positions in her mind, every step a dance of precision and timing. She checked her ship and systems, ensuring fuel, weapons and shields were at peak efficiency. She accessed encrypted communications to intercept last-minute movements of the Empire, adjusting her plans as needed, a predator calculating her attack. The intensity of her focus was absolute. The children and their safety were the center of her universe, and the thought of their frightened faces pushed her further into a frenzy of preparation. Every breath measured, every heartbeat aligned with her mission. She paused at the edge of the catwalk, looking out at the swirling gas clouds of the giant planet below, knowing that soon she would move from preparation to action, and the Empire would have no idea. The storm coming for them was born not from armies or fleets but from one mother, one Huntress, whose fury and skill were unmatched across galaxies, and as she tightened her grip on her weapons, she allowed a small smile to form, knowing that very soon her children would be back in her arms, and nothing the Empire had built could stop her. The shadow of the Empire fortress loomed ahead, massive spires cutting into the dark sky like jagged teeth. Her ship glided silently through the debris field surrounding it, avoiding patrols and automated sensors. The engines whispered as she navigated each obstacle with the precision of a master hunter, every calculation exact, every movement deliberate. She found a weak point in the outer defenses, a maintenance shaft rarely monitored, and slipped inside unnoticed. The corridor was narrow and dimly lit, her footsteps soft against the metal floor, and every muscle in her body coiled, ready to react. She paused at intersections, listening to the distant hum of guards and the faint clatter of machinery. Her senses stretched to the limit, feeling vibrations in the walls, sensing air currents that hinted at the presence of others. She moved like a shadow, blending into darkness, every corner a potential threat, every moment a test of patience and skill. She disabled security cameras with a flick of her wrist, small devices inserted silently and without a sound. She scanned the corridors ahead, visualizing escape routes and choke points, imagining how each guard would react if they noticed her presence. She had studied the layout for weeks, and her memory was flawless, every turn and hallway committed to mind. She crouched behind crates and pipes, watching two soldiers pass, unaware of her proximity, and when the moment was right, she struck a single movement, silent and lethal, taking them down before they could react, dragging them into shadows and hiding the bodies carefully to prevent detection. She continued deeper into the heart of the fortress, using vents and service corridors, avoiding main hallways where patrols were dense. Her heart beat steady, her focus unbroken, every step calculated to bring her closer to the children. She placed small traps behind doors and at intersections, wires and pressure plates that would alert her if anyone followed her movements or slow the pursuit of soldiers. She found herself in a control room, briefly scanning the maps and screens, updating her mental picture of patrol routes and security protocols. She paused for only a moment to memorize every detail before moving. On the hum of distant engines and faint chatter of soldiers was a constant rhythm. She synchronized with her own movements, timing each step and breath to avoid detection. When she finally reached the central chamber, she observed the children through a reinforced window. Her heart clenched at the sight of them huddled together, scared but alive. She catalogued the guards and door mechanisms, noting the weaknesses in their routine. She adjusted her plans, mentally deciding the order of distractions and strikes she would use, each movement choreographed like a deadly dance, every step designed to protect the children and eliminate threats. Silently yet efficiently, her adrenaline surged as she prepared to move into action. The final stage of the hunt was approaching. She took a deep breath, centering herself, feeling the familiar rush of anticipation and control. She tightened her grip on her weapons, her mind a razor-sharp blade of focus. She would move fast and precise, and when she struck, the Empire would have no chance. The fortress would become her hunting ground, and the children would be safe in her arms. Before the soldiers even knew what had happened, and as she stepped forward into the shadows, she became the storm, a predator, moving unseen, a mother armed with fury and skill unmatched across the stars, ready to unleash her wrath. She moved like liquid through the corridors, every step, measured every breath, controlled her eyes, scanning constantly for any sign of movement. The guards were oblivious to the predator in their midst. Her fingers brushed over the hilt of her weapon, ready to strike at a moment's notice. The first guard appeared around a corner, unaware. She was there, a flick of her wrist, and a silent projectile found its mark. He crumpled to the floor before he could utter a sound. She dragged him into a shadow, and continued forward, each movement fluid and precise. The air was thick with tension. Every metallic clang, every distant footstep amplified in her ears. She knew she had only minutes before the children could be moved. She placed a small device at the far end of the hall, a simple but effective trap that would disable the doors and delay reinforcements, giving her precious time. The next corridor was darker, the hum of machinery louder, the tension tighter. She pressed herself against the wall as two more soldiers patrolled the passage, and she struck again, silently removing the threat before it could even register. The children must never see the violence, only safety. Her focus absolute, each move a combination of deadly efficiency and careful planning. She slipped through a side passage, crouching under low beams and over broken pipes, avoiding the main traffic areas. The ship corridors twisted and turned like a labyrinth designed to confuse intruders, but she had memorized every inch, every juncture, every guard post. She paused only once to listen and plot the final approach to the holding chamber. Her mind racing through contingencies and escape routes, she adjusted her plan with surgical precision, knowing that hesitation could cost lives. She reached the final door, a reinforced steel barrier with security panels and guards posted on both sides. She crouched and examined the locks, circuits and sensors. Her fingers moved expertly, manipulating the panels and inserting small devices that disabled alarms one by one until the door became a weak point, a threshold she could breach and enter without triggering immediate reinforcements. She listened to the children inside, their quiet sobs and whispered reassurances to each other. Her heart ached, but fury surged through her veins. She would not let them suffer for a single moment longer. She triggered a small charge that silently disengaged the locks and slipped inside the chamber, moving like a shadow across the floor. The children froze at first, unable to comprehend the sudden presence of their mother, and then recognition sparked in their eyes, relief and disbelief flooding through them. She gathered them into her arms one by one, holding them tight, whispering words of comfort that reassured and calmed them. Her grip was iron strong, their safety absolute. Her eyes swept the room for any remaining threats. Two guards turned toward her presence, but it was too late. She struck with speed unmatched, their bodies crumpling silently against the walls. She moved to the exit, placing small traps behind her as she retreated, creating a corridor of confusion and delay for anyone who would dare follow. She led the children through service tunnels and maintenance shafts, moving toward her ship, every step careful, every movement protective, her mind and body a single instrument of rescue and retribution. The Empire had underestimated her, and that mistake would cost them heavily. And as the metal walls of the fortress receded behind them, she held the children close, feeling their small bodies relax in her arms for the first time in hours, and the galaxy seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the storm to fully unleash. The corridors behind them seemed endless, a maze of steel and shadows, but she moved with unwavering confidence. Each step deliberate, each turn calculated. Her senses stretched to their limits, feeling the vibrations in the walls and floors, as if the fortress itself was alive with tension. She kept the children close, their small bodies pressed against hers, their fear palpable yet slowly ebbing with every movement away from captivity. She checked the traps she had left behind, each one carefully placed to delay pursuers and create confusion among the soldiers. They would find locked doors, disabled systems, and unexpected hazards, slowing them down, but she would be long gone by the time they reached them. The tunnels twisted and descended, deeper into maintenance shafts filled with cables, pipes, and narrow catwalks. She led the children over grated floors and through low passages, crouching and slipping through spaces designed to be inaccessible to anyone unprepared. The hum of distant alarms began faintly at first, a subtle indication that the Empire had realized the breach, but she remained calm, her mind calculating each possibility, each reaction, predicting movements of patrols and automated defenses as if she could see into the future. She slowed only briefly to listen at a junction to soldiers pass by, their flashlights sweeping the corridor. They paused, almost feeling her presence, but moved on, unaware of the shadow that had slipped past them. She allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction and continued moving, guiding the children like a phantom through the labyrinth, every turn and step an exercise in precision and timing. She reached a service lift that would carry them to the surface of the planet. The controls were secured, but she manipulated them effortlessly, overriding the system in moments. The lift descended smoothly and silently, like a ghost moving through the belly of the fortress. The children clung to her, instinctively holding tight as the walls shifted around them, their journey from fear to hope, a fragile thread she nurtured with soft words and steady movements. She emerged at the surface, into the pale light of a distant sun, her ship waiting among jagged rocks and drifting debris. She guided the children swiftly toward it, keeping low and hidden. The Empire forces were alerting quickly, but their movement was slowed by the traps and obstacles she had left behind. She activated the ship's systems with practiced ease, weapons, shields, engines all at readiness, but her priority was speed and escape, not battle. She hoisted the children aboard and strapped them safely into seats, their eyes wide and full of relief. The engines roared to life. She guided the ship away from the planet, weaving through debris fields and avoiding patrols with incredible skill. The faint echoes of alarms and pursuit attempted to catch them, but her mastery of piloting and instinct for survival kept him ahead at every turn. She glanced back only briefly to see the first faint signs of the Empire emerging from the base. Too late to reach them. She allowed herself a moment of satisfaction and a sharp surge of adrenaline, knowing that for now her children were safe and she had won this battle. But her mind remained alert, already plotting the next moves. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but no distance could keep her from ensuring the safety of those she loved. And as the fortress faded into the distance, the stars ahead seemed to shimmer with promise and freedom, and she held the children close, feeling their small breaths against her shoulder, a reminder of what she had fought for and what she would always fight to protect. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a tapestry of cold light and infinite darkness, yet her mind was fully focused on the threat closing in. Behind them, the Empire would not surrender their prisoners without pursuit, and she knew they would send everything they had to capture them. She adjusted the ship's course, weaving through asteroid fields and debris clouds, her hands moving with perfect coordination across controls, every twist and turn a calculated risk, every maneuver designed to shake off trackers and avoid patrols. The children huddled in their seats, their small hands clutching hers, seeking comfort and strength, which she provided with calm words and steady movements. She accessed the ship's sensors, detecting distant signals, the faintest blips indicating Imperial fleets mobilizing their weapons and tracking systems. Attempting to lock onto them, she smiled faintly, knowing they underestimated her again. She activated countermeasures, deploying small drones and signal scramblers that emitted interference, creating false positions across the void. Confusing the pursuers and buying precious time, she anticipated the next moves of the Empire, predicting which routes they would take and where they might attempt an ambush. She plotted a course through a series of uncharted asteroid belts, weaving between massive rocks and debris, her ship slipping through narrow passages with skill unmatched. Her adrenaline heightened, yet her mind remained calm, precise, and focused, each action deliberate. She calculated escape vectors and backup plans, contingencies for every possible scenario. The children were safe, and every step she took ensured they would remain that way. She glanced at them briefly, noting the mixture of fear and awe in their eyes as they witnessed the galaxy from the cockpit of her ship. Feeling the thrill of escape and the weight of danger all at once, she adjusted the ship's energy output, optimizing shields and engines. Preparing for sudden maneuvers, the Empire would try to close the distance using fast interceptors and long-range missiles, but she was ready. She deployed small decoys and countermeasures, each one moving like a phantom in space, creating chaos among the pursuing forces. Her instincts guided her every decision, sensing the right moment to accelerate, to warp, or to hide behind a dense asteroid cluster. She whispered reassurances to the children, reminding them that they were almost free, that nothing could reach them, that she was in control and they were protected. She navigated a particularly dense asteroid field, where massive rocks threatened to crush or shred the ship. Each movement was precise, almost a dance between life and death. She felt the familiar rush of exhilaration and control, the Empire forces faltering behind her, unable to anticipate the maneuvers of a Huntress who knew every trick and had prepared for every eventuality. She emerged from the field unscathed, leaving the pursuers scattered and confused. She pushed the engines harder, feeling the vibrations and roar of power under her hands. A sense of triumph surging through her, she allowed herself only a brief smile, her mind already planning the next phase of their journey, ensuring the children's safety until the galaxy itself could no longer threaten them. And as they disappeared into the star-strewn horizon, she felt the weight of relief settle over her, knowing the worst was behind them for now, but the vigilance and cunning that had kept them alive would never waver as long as she drew breath. The stars outside the cockpit shimmered like distant diamonds, her ship gliding through empty space, a fragile bubble of safety. Amidst the vast dangers that lurked in the galaxy behind them, the Empire's fleets struggled to regain their bearings, disrupted and confused by her brilliance and foresight. But she did not celebrate yet. Her focus remained sharp, her children safe, and closed their small hands, gripping hers as they watched the endless void pass by with wide eyes full of wonder and awe. She guided the ship toward a hidden planet, a world known only to her, a place of refuge and secrecy. She calculated the approach carefully, ensuring no sensors or patrols could detect them. The planet loomed large on the view screen, a crescent of green and blue partially shrouded in clouds. She felt a surge of relief, knowing that once they landed, the Empire would not easily find them. The children whispered questions about what had happened, their voices trembling with curiosity and fear. She answered softly, explaining that they had been taken, but that she had come for them, that they were safe now, that no one could harm them as long as she was there. Her heart swelled with fierce protective love and pride at their courage and resilience. She initiated the descent through the planet's atmosphere, carefully navigating turbulent winds and rocky terrain. The ship shuddered and roared, but her hands remained steady, every adjustment precise and controlled. The children clung to her with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Finally, the ship touched down on a hidden plateau surrounded by dense forests and high cliffs, natural defenses that would keep them safe from any prying eyes. She powered down the engines, and the hum of the ship faded, leaving only the sound of wind and distant wildlife. The children scrambled out of their seats, running toward the open air, feeling the ground beneath their feet and the freedom of the moment. She followed closely, keeping them close there, laughter mingling with sighs of relief. For the first time in what seemed like an eternity, she allowed herself to relax just slightly, knowing the immediate danger was past, but her mind remained alert, ready to protect them if necessary. She led them toward the safety of hidden caves and shelters that had been prepared long ago, supplies, weapons, and communication devices ready for any emergency. She spoke of new beginnings and the possibility of peace. Their eyes shone with hope and trust. In her skill and judgment, she looked back toward the stars, knowing that Empire would eventually search for them again. But she felt no fear, only confidence, for she had proven herself unstoppable, a mother, a Huntress, unmatched across galaxies, whose skill, cunning, and love had triumphed over overwhelming odds. She held the children in her arms as the sun rose over the horizon, casting golden light across the hidden valley, their small bodies safe and secure. In the warmth of her embrace, she whispered promises of protection and freedom that would last as long as she lived. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but together they had survived, and her children finally understood the truth of her reputation, the deadliest Huntress, the fiercest mother, and the unyielding force of love that would strike down any who dared threaten her family. And as the first rays of light touched their faces, she smiled, knowing that At last they were home, and the Empire had been shown the price of underestimating a mother's wrath.